Damn, that's fabulous.
Supposed to be here in the Hall of Fame today. So I took every game like it was my Hall of Fame game. So I'm very thankful. I have a pretty good idea what it represents to Dominican. But until I get there and the people let me know, that's when I probably finally land on what I have done.
Is any conversation about the GOAT, that's the greatest of all time, when it comes to pitching, complete without mention of Pedro Martinez? I say it's not. Now, Martinez's lifetime stats are not objectively the best in any category. He finished his career 13th all-time in lifetime strikeouts with 3,154. In lifetime ERA, he finished 151st with a career ERA of 2.93, and he placed 6th all-time for all-time Cy Young Award winners with 3. He won 219 games and lost 100, with an all-time win percent of .695. His career win percent was .69. Nice. Anyway, while not objectively the best on paper, this man was absolutely unstoppable when he was on. While at his peak, he was one of the first pitchers you would ever want to be the ace of your organization. In today's video, we're making the case for Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez was born in 1971 in Monaguayabo in the Dominican Republic. He grew up without much money for his family and played baseball as a child as sort of an escape from his family's situation. Pedro developed a talent for baseball and was drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1988, where he made his major league debut in 1992 on the Dodgers. He was traded to the Montreal Expos in 1993, where he became quite famous for his pitching ability. He then went on to the Boston Red Sox in 1997, where he would remain until 2004. While with the Boston Red Sox, he went on to win 3 Cy Young Awards and 1 World Series championship. Now, in addition to being the ace of their pitching staff, Pedro was also known for some pretty funny antics during his stint with Boston.
Oh, hold on here. The Phantom here of Fenway also made the call. Is that Pedro Martinez? I think that's Pedro Martinez.
But as laid back and funny as a guy as he was, Pedro was also known for some controversial moments throughout his career, such as when he pushed Don Zimmer during the 2003 ALCS against the Yankees.
That's awful. Don Zimmer is...
But love the guy or hate the guy, one thing you have to do is respect the guy. Pedro Martinez is tied with Roger Clemens for third most 15-plus strikeout games of all time, with 10, second only to Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson, who has the all-time record with 29. Now, Randy Johnson did play 4 more seasons than Martinez, so it's important to note, that he does have the longevity there. So, when Pedro Martinez was on, he was absolutely on and was entirely unstoppable. In one summer game in 1999, Pedro Martinez struck out 17 of the rival New York Yankees in a stunning display of pitching dominance. Pedro Martinez had tons of pitches, from a 98-mile-per-hour fastball to a sneaky changeup. He also had a curveball as well as a great breaking ball. Pedro Martinez was a very high IQ player and knew how to manufacture outs. When he was in jams, he knew how to get out of it. He was one of the most complete pitchers to ever play the game, and no conversation of the greatest of all time is complete without mentioning Pedro Martinez.
Pretty good pitchers, and they battled their butt off. And Sierra is a good example, hitting good pitches. Matsui did it earlier in the game too. Abel hit pretty good pitches. What can I say? Just tip my hat and call the Yankees my daddies.
Now, it's not to say that Martinez's career wasn't without hardship. In In 2004, Pedro suffered several losses to the rival New York Yankees that he once dominated earlier in his career. Growing tensions between the two teams made the losses all that much worse. In 2003, Pedro Martinez allowed the Yankees to tie the game in Game 7 of the ALCS, eventually leading to Aaron Boone hitting a home run off of Tim Wakefield to end the game and send the Yankees to the World Series, where they would inevitably lose to the Florida Marlins. So Pedro went through several slumps in his career and took particular flack for this interview where he called the Yankees his daddies. But what would happen next, I believe, would help cement him as one of the greatest of all time in any account of the game. After that interview, Yankees fans would relentlessly chant "Who's your daddy?" to try to get into the head of Martinez during games between the Yankees and the Red Sox, which arguably may have been working. The Yankees and the Red Sox would end up facing each other in the 2004 ALCS to decide who would go to the World Series, in a series that's absolutely, from my recollection, one of the greatest series in the history of the game of baseball. Everything was on the line. Boston had not won a World Series since 1918, and the Yankees were looking to add their 27th ring to their collection. In a series that would feature everything but the kitchen sink, would Pedro rise to the occasion, or would he choke again against the dreaded Yankees?
On the mound. He takes over for Derek Lowe, who was sensational. 6 innings, 1 run, 1 hit in this Game 7 start on short rest. Struck out 3, walked 1. Doug Minkiewicz takes over at first to improve the defense, and Pedro deals with Matsui.
Now, to give a little context to what you're about to see, Boston had come back from being down 3 games to none in the 2004 ALCS. Never in the history of baseball had a team lost the first 3 games and come back to win the next 4 straight to go to the World Series in the American League Championship, or in any 7-series game for that matter. Pedro Martinez was brought in the bottom of the 7th during Game 7, where Boston had taken an 8-1 lead against the Yankees. He came in with Boston at a big lead. I can only speculate at this point that at the time manager Terry Francona wanted to make a statement. He wanted to have Pedro get his closure and overcome the dreaded Yankees. Let's see how he did.
Meanwhile, the Red Sox have missed a number of opportunities the last few innings to really blow it open.
Because of that, this is the biggest out of the game thus far.
In the air to right field, Nixon is there. The inning is over. Martinez gives up 2. The crowd climbed back into it. Martinez stopped it there, and after 7, it's 8-3 Boston.
Martinez gave up 2 runs but got through the inning, and Boston went on to win the game 10-3. Beating the New York Yankees, going to the World Series where they would eventually beat the St. Louis Cardinals in a 4-game sweep, breaking the curse of the Bambino, winning their first championship in 2004 since 1918. This, I think, was a defining moment in Pedro Martinez's career. He was one of the players on the team who helped lead them to the World Series. He helped overcome the dreaded Yankees in the ALCS, and would go on to finish his season by winning a ring with Boston. And I think that this really cements the case for Pedro Martinez that while he may not be, the greatest of all time when it comes to the numbers, his statistics are all certainly formidable. And when it came to the clutch, he got the job done. By the way, if you've never watched the 2004 ALCS, regardless of what team you like, I highly, highly recommend watching it. It is one of the greatest series in the history of the game. Talk about multiple games going into extra innings and just nail biters all the way across the board. I remember when I was in middle school staying up till like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. to watch each of these games. Great series. Anyway, back to Mr. Martinez. So, is Pedro Martinez the greatest of all time? Well, I'd say he's certainly up there, and that no conversation when it comes to the GOAT is complete without the mention of Pedro Martinez.